Hi everyone, welcome to this new short series. Today I'm with Anne Chloé, super excited to be here. We will be talking about, well, Anne Chloé herself, her work, and the space of the Huntress and the Lover camp, which is one of the first camps actually that signed up to the gathering. An amazing group of people exploring really interesting topics touching on to inner and outer regeneration. But Anne Chloé, I'll let you say a lot more about this later on in the conversation. I would love to get us started by hearing a bit more about you, who you are, what's alive in you in your day-to-day life and in your work.
Thank you, Audrey, and hello everyone. So my name is Anne Chloé Destremau, and I'm a game world builder, an Arcane game world builder, and a mimetic engineer. And that means I cavitate new space in which new mimetic structures can come apparent so that something that seemed to be not possible before becomes possible. And it can be in many, many domains, but I'm really working with the domain of possibility. So what new possibility can there be in how do we relate to each other? How do women relate to each other? How do parents relate with children? But also, how do we relate with Gaia? Or how do you relate to what you are here to offer in the world, which we called non-material value? Because basically in this modern culture, in this patriarchal, capitalist, hierarchical culture, it's centered on material value. How much can you produce? And it's in quantity. So it could very well be houses and chairs and how many websites, but it's also about how much money you can make or how much followers you have on Instagram. And all of that is centered on this material value that's quantifying, turning the natural world basically into dollar bills. That's the consequence of centering a culture on material value. And so we've been discovering, and this is part really one of my job and who I am, is I'm emerging, researching, pushing the boundaries of this culture called archiarchy, which comes after matriarchy and patriarchy have run their course. And as patriarchy is collapsing, this new culture is emerging, and we call it archiarchy. And I think a lot of people who are interested, who are looking around the gathering of tribe, they're hungry for this new culture. They might not have a name for it. But to not have a name for it means that you can't actually distinguish it from the culture that you were born into. And that's a lot of the work that I do is for people to find where they are, like what I call the X on the map of being, I was born and raised in a patriarchal culture. So I've adopted patterns, I've adopted emotional patterns, I've adopted mimetics, memes, and what I call thoughtware is like, what do you use to think with? What's this filter that you have between you and the world? If you were born and raised in patriarchy, you've adopted all that from first your parents and then eventually from school. So many people who are brilliant geniuses and who have so many keys to unlock this potential of a new culture, really on planet Earth, a new human culture, are stuck because they went to school. So for example, they're afraid that they won't know. If you don't know, then you can't create, because in school we were taught to know. Or if you don't have the right answer, or if somebody disagrees with you, what you might be judged, you might be graded. And so there's this pain, really, this sadness, the fear in me, and also a lot of anger about seeing these geniuses that I get to be around that are still stuck in these patriarchal prison of thoughtware. That would be a short introduction into what I do.
What a Pandora box. Beautiful, thank you. Yeah, and it resonates a lot because I mean, God knows I'm deep into the world of regeneration and rethinking the system. And actually, I hadn't heard the term archiarchy before. And yeah, I was just asking, in the little briefing before this conversation, and I resonate so much with this idea of the language and the importance of having or creating the language for something, right? Because it makes it such a different reality, and it allows us to grasp it intellectually and otherwise, and to bring it into our reality in a different form. So thank you for that. So curious to hear more. Actually, maybe we can take a little bit of time to dive a bit deeper into your work, and again, how you bring all those concepts that you just shared into the world every day. What kind of people do you bring it to? What kind of formats? We're also sharing a little bit about that before. Before we dive into the camp more specifically after that.
Yes. So already I can tell you that a lot of the words that I'm using are not concepts, because concepts are in the mind, and it comes from this intellectual picture. And I work with 5 bodies. There's the physical body, intellectual, emotional, especially energetic body, and the archetypal body, which is, what are you really here to create? It's the vehicle through which you connect to these archetypal domains. So the words that I'm using are not concept, they're called distinctions. And distinctions is the thing that weaves into your being your ability to catch consciousness. So the clearer your distinction, the closer your distinction are to reality, the more you can actually catch consciousness. And what we discovered is responsibility is consciousness in action. So responsibility is applied consciousness. So the way to move into a culture of radical responsibility is about expanding expanding your awareness and weaving new distinction through which you can actually perceive in all 5 bodies, not as an intellectual consideration or idea. In your 5 bodies, can you perceive different things? So I'll give a very short example of what a distinction is. For example, most of us has learned to distinguish between a ripe apple and an apple that has rotten. So we can distinguish it sometimes with our eyes, but also with the smell or with the taste. So it's not an idea, oh, this is a ripe apple and this is a rotten apple. We actually have the experience of it. So there's a lot of things that we do not have the experience of, because we're carrying very old thoughtware from our parents and from their parents. 6,000 years of patriarchal thoughtware that's been passed down from generation to generation and not upgraded. Because if you look around, where's the office where you say, I want to upgrade my thoughtware, I want to upgrade my distinctions? I've been in many cities in the world. I told you I'm a nomad. I've never seen that office anywhere on any street. But you walk down the street, and how many shops are there to upgrade your phone? Okay, there's so many, how many times do you upgrade the OS on your phone? These days, it's almost every 2 weeks. Okay, how many times do you do that with your own operating system? Almost none, because what I offer, and your question was what I offer, are authentic initiation into adulthood. So authentic adulthood initiation. And usually when we hear this word initiation, we immediately think of indigenous initiation. And indigenous initiation are a particular kind of initiation. I offer something very different, which is basically initiations into this adulthood, this shift from childhood, being a consumer, being somebody else I can make a mess and I don't have to clean it up. I don't have to be responsible. This is the child orientation towards life. That is great. We need that until basically 14, 15, 18 years old, let's say. At 18 years old, we're ready to go through these initiation, move into adulthood. And so, I mean, I don't know if you, Audrey, or the people who are listening, but you remember when you were 16, 17, 18, there was this thing, you were waiting for this thing to happen. Do you remember that sensation? Like something big is waiting for me. And what you got to do is go to university, smoke, drink, drive, but there was not this crack open. There was no space holder to take you through shedding off and cracking open this eggshell in which you lived,
Yeah.
until you were 18. You needed it. But at 18, it's ready to be cracked open so that your your adult being can actually come into the world. And I'll say something about that, which is initiations it's a, it can be a scary thing to say, but it's a death and resurrection show. It's what we called a liquid state. So to become somebody new, you first have to melt the identity with which you identified. And this liquid state, I think a lot of edge workers who are looking at the gathering of tribe have had that sensation, have had this moment of who am I? Or my life, I realized my life was a lie. Up to now, I lived a lie. So that really happened to me. But often these liquid states are circumstantial or accidental. They happen because somebody's experimenting or somebody is really going on that edge. And with the team that I'm working with, these possibilitators, we provide spaces where those liquid state can happen in a very held, safe, real, and in a way dangerous, because they're true, because you will lose part of your identity before it can come back together in a more authentic and a more elegant and a more evolved way. And so what we discovered about that is it does need this space holding of somebody that is in a different culture, that is holding space for a context in which you can reorder and come back into in a shape that can catch more consciousness. And from that, just from being able to catch more consciousness, you have new possibilities, and therefore you have new power to make different choices, to make different declaration, to make proposals, to make offers for negotiating intimacy and negotiating how do you want your team to go, or even how to create a team. Like, so many of us are so blocked at that stage of, I'm so scared to connect with other people.
Mm.
So what that tells me is this fear of connection is most people that are not initiated in conscious fear. And that's partly, and I'll wrap it up with that, is the first step, like the first initiation in our work, is learning how to feel consciously: anger, sadness, fear, and joy. Because if you can navigate those four, you can go through any liquid state. Without those, anytime there's a liquid state, there's a change possible. What you feel is fear. If it's not okay to feel fear, you will you'll step back and being, I can't do this because I've not learned to navigate my heart. So I think that's a lot what we'll be offering in the camp, is this learning to inner navigate feelings, but also new sensation, energetic sensation.
Very powerful. Thank you. Yeah, I could bounce back on basically everything you said, but in the vision of the gathering, there is really this that you described, this idea of how can the collective within this ecosystem create a container for 5 days, in this case, maybe for 10, maybe for a month, for us to hold one another, right, within the ecosystem, and for us to actually be able to hold that space together and see what kind of transformation happens. So there's a lot also of thought and energy and heart put into bringing back the rituals, right? Victor, my co-founder, is connected to those ideas. And
Well,
yeah.
can I say one sentence about this? One of the most powerful way I've seen for people to come together is to bring immediately people together and create a space that creates a liquid state, so that any identification with what we call the box, with I am this, you are this, I have this story about you, immediately liquefies, and we immediately on eye level, because we all do not know who we are. And then it's much easier for me to be with you if I don't know who I am and I don't know who you are. I'm like, Audrey, I want to meet you. And it creates an authentic connection of based on this being liquid together.
Beautiful. This
Mm.
is coming up a lot around the structure of the gathering in camps, right? I talk about this, yeah, a lot in recorded meetings, but a lot of people have come to me and said, yes, but the structure is putting people into boxes again because there's those camps. And this is not the idea, actually. The idea is we first find our tribes because this is the space where we're really strongly held. And this is one of the subcontainers, so that we can understand that we don't know who we are, basically, and then come together, right? In between the tribes, in the shared space of the overall collective. So yeah, thank you for that. The last question I wanted to bring forward is, I guess this is what's in me now. Why did you decide to come into the gathering and to participate, right? To, I guess, take radical responsibility for co-creating as part of the Huntress and the Lover. What does it mean for you? You're doing a lot of workshops and retreats, and you're already holding a lot of spaces. I guess some call may or must have been heard by you for you to feel like stepping into the space of the gathering. I don't know if you're connected to that right now, but if you are, can you share a bit more about, yeah, how you
I
end?
mean, what I love is to look around for my allies and my colleagues. And I met also Victor online in another meeting. It's like you holding space for a possibility of global transformation. And that is, I have such resonance with people who are willing to take a stand that will in a way destroy over and over any attachment to some what I would call, I don't know how to say this, but it's like you're putting yourself at risk. You didn't have to do this. Victor didn't have to do this. And I don't know if you've heard before, but it's a big thing. There's so many people who have the capacity that you have the skill that you have, and have not yet taken this leap of, I'm going to make myself naked. I'm going to make myself vulnerable. I'm going to try something really daring in the world, and for what, 400 people, 500 people, to gain value. So it's a huge stand, and I love being around people who have such stand. And my question I bring is, what can I do for you? How can I support you? And what have you learned that could feed my context? And like this, we're exchanging what I call non-material value across communities of practice. So Gathering of Tribe is a community of practice. Possibility Management is a community of practice. And also each tribe, each camp is a community of practice. So let's see what we can exchange that is of value.
Beautiful. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Yeah.
That's a beautiful ending. I have nothing to add. Is there anything you would like to throw in the space before we close?
Yes, which is, I don't know how that would happen if you're setting anything up like this, but for anybody who's interested in coming to the gathering and having this this hesitation, this fear, this how can I found my place, how can I, that consider that there's a lot of people who have the same question and the same fear. You're not alone. And this is exactly the place to have this conversation. So you come with the fear of, I don't know how to be here, and have that conversation with people who can listen to you and who can be in this exchange. So we don't know. We don't know what actually works because we haven't been able to create this massive change that we're being called to. Gaia is calling us for. And so we need this vulnerability and the question and the pain from each person for this intelligence to kind of come together and move together. And you are one of us.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, I have to bounce back on this quickly. for all those who are watching this video, indeed, we're receiving a lot of messages every day from people who are saying, I don't know what camp to choose. I'm struggling so much. I'm looking at all the camps and I don't know. And we were just sharing with Victor about it this morning again, saying it's fascinating how people are taking this seriously, because and that is beautiful, right? It's really a sign of the whole concept of the camps comes from the idea of you have to make a meaningful decision to come into the space. And this is already radical responsibility. You can't consume the space because you have to choose your camp to start with. But as you're saying, we don't know, and you won't know basically until you come into the space. And so for me, in the choosing of the camp, there's also this invitation to tune into your intuition and where it starts. And this is your starting point into the gathering. And then things will happen, right? And then the serendipity machine will take over from there, basically. But yes, I resonate so much with what you just shared. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I feel very complete and deeply grateful. Yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Those who are still here. I'll put all the relevant links in the comment section and the description, the link to the Huntress and the Lover camp, and a contact detail. And see you at the gathering, 11 to 15 September in the north of Portugal on a very beautiful piece of land. Thank you so much, Anne Chloé.
Thank you, Audrey.